I've been working on kind of an intro for this podcast.
Okay.
This is the Unemployable podcast, episode 0001. So we're planning on making it to at least 10,000, and then we'll have to start over again, the numbers. But Unemployable is just an idea I've been working with, a theme I've been working on in my business, in my life. And really what it means to me is kind of this disconnection from an employee mindset. And the employee mindset is just the ability to blame someone else for things, for how much money you make, or how much time you have or don't have, or how much money you could make in the future, or just what your opportunities are. It's very easy and comfortable to get into that space of just blaming someone else for those kind of things. And I want to continue escaping from that mindset and help others escape from that mindset. So today, my Captain Hook looking co-host, it's a good friend of mine, Patrick Cook. He will occasionally co-host with me, mostly whenever it's me wanting to share some of my thoughts. It's kind of hard to do that in a interview format, and so he has graciously offered to help. So thank you, Patrick.
You got it. Happy to be here. Happy to be part of the first of 10,000.
Yeah.
I appreciate that goal.
We'll be one short of 10,000, and they'll have to really decide what's going to happen next. What do you think about having a name for a podcast like this instead of just like calling it the Sam Cottle Show?
I think it gives... Sorry, I'm giving you editing right away.
I'm not going to edit that out.
Oh, okay. I think it's helpful. I think it provides context right up front. Mm-hmm. I really like naming things. I enjoy that as an art form for whatever reason. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I love helping people with that. I don't know that I'm particularly gifted in it, but for whatever reason, that feels like a cathartic activity to me. I remember...
Yeah, you always seem to enjoy that.
I love it. I remember this episode of Startup, that Gimlet Media podcast about starting Gimlet Media, and the one episode about them working with that naming company. I forget their name. It was like Lexicon or something like that.
So appropriate that you forgot the name of the naming company.
I know. That episode was so fun. The depth of work, the playfulness of language. I think that's what it is. It's the playfulness of language and being able to boil down an idea, and the more and more difficult it gets. And then when you land on that thing that summarizes the spirit of what you couldn't say in a paragraph is poetry. I think that's why I love poetry. It's this beautiful distillation of fewer and fewer words that say more than you could have with 10 times as many words.
Yeah, that really connects with why I like Unemployable, because it means like a lot to me, but I feel like terrified to explain it. Because I'm like, it's so much, and it's like, it depends on like what topic we're talking about, and it's like, but it means, so the name's more for me than for others. I'm okay with that.
I think it's a really good starting point for a lot of those conversations, though. And when you were just explaining that core principle or the idea around the show, I was thinking about outsourcing responsibility for the emotional construct that we go into workplaces with. And this is so many conversations that we've had, and I think a lot of that boils down to just an easy outsourcing of responsibility so that we don't have to hold so much intention ourselves.
Do you think your parents did that?
Like taught me about that as a principle, or?
No, like when you saw them like work and like live their life, do you think that they outsourced that responsibility?
Yeah, I think so. To some extent, I think maybe it was easier to see my dad doing that than my mom. Not saying that he did it more. She homeschooled us, and so there wasn't so much of a system that she was participating in that she could outsource responsibility to or blame for things. She was accepting a lot of responsibility for our education, and some of that was because of fear of a system. But my dad's job was union. It was working for the railroad. I think just the culture of that workplace, it was easy to go along with the narrative of everybody else that he was with. Like, this is broken. There's nothing we can do about it other than complain about the system that we're operating within.
Yeah, some of it's just that. It's like just the feeling of I have no control or say.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, I'm just going to kind of blame the system.
Yeah.
Even if it's not like I'm blaming my employer, it's like I'm blaming reality on where I find myself, right?
Yeah. I think you have to extend that narrative. The more control you potentially have, I think the further you have to extend that narrative in order for somebody, in order to apply it practically to somebody that should have responsibility. So if you actually have a ton of autonomy and agency that you should be choosing and applying to your life, you have to extend that narrative to a political system, to a global reality, if your employer isn't actually the one that's like holding you back, I think.
Yeah. And as an employer, I want to hold my employees back. I don't want them to outgrow their position. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we don't often put ourselves in those kind of situations. But I want to go into a little bit of what is it like. We're both pretty employable people, whether you believe that about yourself or not. You're a college graduate, you're responsible, you're respectful, like you work hard, like you could get a job pretty easily.
Yeah.
But there's still this kind of thing where you don't quite fit in. And I feel the same. And I want each of us to kind of share kind of why we feel like we don't fit in. I can start.
Yeah, please.
So I've always loved work. I have no problem like actually working. I started working really young. I got a motorcycle, started kind of like really having a regular job when I was 14. Before that, typical like odds and ends, like go work for the guy that owns the concrete company that we know, those kind of things. And he would chew me out about how I wasn't shoveling good enough. I remember that so well. Gosh, he's like, no, like this, damn it. Just like okay, I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Those are great experiences, but I've always just felt a little bit out of place with the conversations, even in a workplace, of like, let's just like gripe about whatever and talk about like what we ate over the weekend and just talk about like the shows we're watching and the news, all those kind of things that just kind of that fodder of like the workplace.
Sure.
I just have always hated it. I've never, ever like felt comfortable with that. And sometimes I've like judged myself to be like, I'm just too serious. Like I need to just relax and like enjoy this a little bit. Or I need to just like, maybe I should watch that show. Like maybe that would be fun or good for me or something. But I've never like really let myself just like be serious.
Yeah.
And some of that like is just me acknowledging like, no, that's just how I am. And that doesn't mean anything, like, right? It's just like how I am. Yeah. And it's like I find a lot of joy in working very seriously and intentionally. And I get to do that on my own terms when I'm like not under the umbrella of someone else. So a lot of it is me just actually doing it on my own terms. Now, whether that is cutting grass or running a business, like I still just like I have an idea of how I want to do it, and I want to actually try it all the way before somebody like interrupts me and like tells me like, no, do it this way. Some of that's just like me being myself and me like getting to operate my own business and take an idea and turn it into something is a big expression of that.
Yeah. Excuse me. So is the conversation and the rhythm of a workplace environment, I'm trying to understand if it's smallness that you're agitating against, or if it's any kind of constraint. Because you're curious, you're playful, it's not like a resistance against like working with people or working under constraints, because you reinsert those and apply those to yourself. Like you find people to work with, and you have more constraints on yourself than any employer has ever put on you. For the most part, employers that I've been aware of that you've worked with have just like opened more and more doors for you because you keep producing and you keep growing and stretching, and that's really advantageous for them. So I guess my question is it scale, or
that's interesting.
Is it speed?
Yeah.
Or the idea of the construct that is it practical, or?
I think it's both. I think calling it small, that resonates pretty deeply, but I feel like I would never want people to feel like I think they're small, or that I think that their thoughts are small.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm often cautious to even talk about it that way, because it has nothing to do with those people. It's like, no, I'm here to like literally just do this work and accomplish something, and then like go do what I want. And I don't want to like spend time just talking about little things.
Yeah. And I do think, the caution against making people feel small, I think is correct and human. But I do think some people hold, and you've pulled me out of this, I think, a lot. Some people hold a pretty small view of their own life and their own goals and ambition. And partnering with that can feel very suffocating and defeating. So it's not their smallness, but it's the smallness of vision maybe that they hold that can feel really claustrophobic. And I think that's okay to leave behind.
Yeah, and I get stuck in this place where like the people I care about, I want to like drag them out of that. Yeah. Not everybody wants to be dragged out of that. Some people do. Yeah. They really do. Dragged is not the right. They want to be like incentivized out of it.
Yeah, they want to be invited and then encouraged and consistently supported. I think, I feel that for myself. That's something that I want to be constantly invited out of, because I feel the suffocation of it, and sometimes I get stuck in comfort. I get stuck in a false sense of security that's really just languishing in comfort.
So my wife and we like sit on the kitchen floor most nights and talk after the kids go to sleep. And we have this like really special rug in the kitchen that I bought in Nepal. And it's always just kind of fun to me to like sit on this special rug in our kitchen in the dark, like almost dark, and just like have a bowl of cereal and like talk about the day. And we were talking the other night, and I was just telling her, like, I really do want to make a big impact. And I really do think I can. And she was asking me, like, what does that even mean? Like, what's the impact? Yeah. And the impact is that people that come into contact with me would know that they can bet on themselves. Yeah. That they have what it takes to succeed or to accomplish whatever they want. And in the littlest things, whether it's like starting to exercise or it's like quitting your job and starting a new business, like whatever it is. And those are often like big focuses of my life, and like exercise and business, like those are big focuses of my life. So you often talk about the things that you're doing and the things you're excited about. And so I'm not just focusing on those because I think they're important for everybody. I do think they're important. But I don't know. So that's the impact. It's that people would actually think, I can do this and I'm going to go for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's beautiful. I was talking to somebody yesterday that was in a similar place, I think, career-wise or thought-wise about career. And I think I mostly just regurgitated your thought process to them. But I was thinking about what we'd been discussing purpose, and purpose being the driving force of creating safety, like just practical financial security. And then what happens to your purpose once you've achieved that? And it seems like for you, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like for you, that pivot in purpose or the expansion of purpose now is focused on helping other people believe and practically move forward with betting on themselves. And that seems like a pretty big horizon. Like that could be the purpose that you aim at and scale for the rest of your life. Like that's a big goal, and doesn't have.
And it feels really simple. Like this is a really simple message, you know?
Yeah.
But also, like even as I say that, I'm like, is it arrogant for me to like have a message? You know what I mean?
I understand the feeling, but where does that come from? Why does that feel like arrogance? What do you think you should have achieved that gives you
earn the ability to say that?
That gives you permission to say that. Is that like...
Yeah, one of my former real estate coaches, I was talking to him last week, and he was talking about my experience in real estate and how it's like, it's so easy for me to think that my experience is normal, right? Mm-hmm. Because my experience is the most normal thing to me.
Sure.
It's like, but your experience in the industry is not normal. Like you could share that and like everybody else is like, what, you did what? Mm-hmm. But to me, it's just like, no, this is just normal and boring. I'm just like trying.
Yeah. I think every once in a while, I remind you of the fact that maybe you've pushed beyond the bounds of normal for the rest of us, and that you don't have to like pull back or anything, but just helping you contextualize that maybe you've pushed beyond normative experience. I don't know if that's the best way to say that.
I hate that. I hate even just that, like, it's not like that there's a normal. Mm-hmm. That's what I hate. Mm. That I feel that constraint my whole life. Like even amongst my peers or cousins or whoever, it's like they're normal and I'm not.
Yeah. And there's this weird kind of gross human thing that we do where we pull people back to that normative mean, or we pull people back to where we're at.
Yeah, like tall poppy syndrome. Are you familiar with that?
I think so. It's like the one that pokes above the field gets cut off.
Yeah, gets cut off or pulled back down. Mm-hmm. Talk about like crabs in a barrel too. It's like the crabs, they pull the other crab back in. They're not trying to get out. They're trying to keep that crab in.
Yeah, to maintain the average, because if someone is, especially somebody who has the same tools as you or the same potential, is succeeding beyond you, that feels disruptive to the narrative that's maintaining your current comfortable state. And that's hard to see if you're not ready to move or act on it. It feels agitating and disrupting.
Yeah.
Huh.
So why do you not fit the system?
I think I can chameleon into a lot of systems, and I think I have probably to maintain comfort. I think I learned to justify or find my own purpose in helping other people. And I was fueled by the affirmation that I got from that. I think I was trying to fill an affirmation deficit for a really long time. And so even some of the things that I developed as tools, as expertise, were more because they were the things that the people I needed affirmation from or wanted affirmation from needed from me.
Yeah.
And so I became an expert
and that
in
was
that.
like the feedback that kept you pursuing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I narrated it to myself as like my own desire, I think, and my own passion. But really I was like just feeding off of affirmation and growing in the direction of that. So I think I can fit into a system, but I don't ever feel like I'm thriving in a system. And I just want I want to live in a bigger, more expansive, more playful space. And I think that's something that I just have to build for myself in order to achieve that space, that kind of freedom, that playfulness that I think I'm aiming at for myself. Can I help you?
Okay, I want to talk about that. I have a question about that playfulness. Like, what do you think would help you have that kind of playful? What do you think would help you kind of make your life into a little bit more of that sandbox that you're looking for? How much of it was practical? How much of it was mental?
I think more of it is mental than I used to realize. I used to think that the more control that I had, the more playful I could be. And I don't think that's as true anymore. I think I can partner with people and be confident in ideas and be more playful. I also think a lot of it is discipline. If I'm afraid of failing at a task and I avoid doing the work too long, then it's just this like fearful last minute mentality, build the thing, the like minimum viable product version of the thing, just to make good on my commitment. And a lot of times that means I bring in outside help or things to shore up my confidence in sending this thing out the door. When I engage more discipline and I dive right into the thing, then it's easier to build. It turns out better. It leaves these wide open gaps of creative space where I can be more playful. So it's really just like facing fear of the unknown, facing fear of failure, and then putting a good structured discipline over the top of that project or labor. So I think mostly it comes down to dealing with fear of failure and applying discipline.
Yeah. Just applying discipline in spite of feelings.
Yeah. Moving through the world, not less emotionally sounds so bad, but being less emotional about creative work, I think, is a really healthy space. And in the end, it just means I can experience better emotions about creative work. It doesn't really result in less emotions. Just
what do you mean better emotions?
Like pride in the work that I'm putting out in the world, excitement to share something with someone. Mm-hmm. It's so predictable. Like the sooner I tackle a problem that I'm uncertain of, the better I'm going to feel about that outcome because I face the fear quicker and it always turns out better.
What is a fear? Like what is one of those fears that you face?
Oh, being found out as fraudulent.
Sure.
Failing, having to be rescued. I performed in a musical years ago. And I did not do enough prep work leading up to it. And that was probably the scariest 3 weeks of my life.
For most people, just performing in a musical in general would be scary.
Sure.
And it is, I feel that way for sure.
But
like even if I were to say I was in a musical,
Yeah.
my default is to like want to make fun of it, but it's actually just so embarrassing to think like that's so vulnerable, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm cast as the lead. I immediately feel fraudulent. Like, this is my friend offering me this shot at something.
Yeah.
And
You're going to make it big in musicals after that?
no, like a regional theater, but leading a show is like, he trusted me too much, but I feel so flattered. I feel excited. I want to help you with your thing. At the outset, I'm like, yeah, easy. I sign on to stuff very easily.
Yeah.
And,
way too easily.
Yeah, way too easily. I'm learning how to say no. But then, 2 months goes by, and I'm so afraid of this thing, I just ignore it. And then I do some real scramble work, couple weeks. Then I go out to Montana to do this show. And for 3 weeks, it's just like terrified. Probably 2.5 weeks. The like 4 days before the show opened, I was like, I think this is going to work.
Oh my God.
But probably for 2.5 weeks, I was just daydreaming about getting hit by a bus. And that was like best case scenario.
Wow.
I was like, this is somebody take me out. Like, I'm learning electric guitar.
Yeah.
Never played electric guitar.
For the show.
Yeah, for the show. I had to memorize, learn, and lead 26 songs from the electric or the acoustic guitar, plus like, I don't know, 200 pages of dialogue. This is nuts. And it worked out fine.
Yeah.
It was really fun. It was well attended. I just had really high blood pressure for like a month probably.
But then once you started doing it, it felt better.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And now it's probably like one of my best creative memories. It's one of my best memories because of all of that labor and all that fear that was overcome and like.
Yeah. So now you're thinking about building this like sandbox where you avoid all that labor and fear. But is that just part of it?
I think it's part of it, but it doesn't have to be so. It doesn't.
Avoided, maybe.
Yeah. The avoidance of it makes that monster like way bigger than it really is.
Right.
So I want to face it sooner, acknowledge that it's very difficult, not ignore that part of it, and then just face it sooner.
Sure.
So I'm doing that again intentionally. This time I'm directing a musical. So I took a contract and I'm doing it again with the knowledge of how that last experience was, so that I can see how it feels to do this better. So this month, I'm prepping to direct a show. I'm not the lead in it. So there's a little bit less pressure, but still shaping it with a lot of people. And then I have 2 weeks to get the show on its feet, and it'll open on the 26th of May.
That seems like so many moving pieces.
It is, but it's also with really competent, creative people that do this a lot more than I do. Again, a friend is entrusting me with something that I've never done. I've never directed a musical. I've directed a straight play. I've been in a lot of musicals, but I've never directed one. So it feels like somebody entrusted me with too much, but trying a different tactic.
Seems fun though.
Yeah. And already starting to do the work and thinking through it, it already has taken so much of the wind out of those sails, fear-wise.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's kind of a typical, well, not a typical fear, but that's the kind of things that you want to confront more quickly in your new sandbox that you're building.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Another question I wanted to talk about is just kind of what is success? Because it's so easy to link like success with employment or career or those kind of things, right?
Yeah.
And I've worked the past few years to kind of redefine it for myself. And it's been some really interesting work that I've done.
Yeah, what is...
But in the midst of that, I also question, like, is it like emotional? Am I being too emotional about success? You just kind of brought up like being less emotional about some of those things. And I wonder, like, what our grandparents would say about how like emotional we are about success and about employment and like that kind of thing.
Yeah. That's an interesting question.
So what is success to you?
I think success to me is a pretty emotional definition.
Yeah.
The grandparents' question is so interesting because
I think it was emotional to them too, and they just didn't realize it.
yeah, I think
Like a sense of security is an emotional thing. It's
Yeah.
not just a physical thing.
Yeah. I think pointing back to previous generations as a golden era or
Yeah.
I think they experienced the same emotions that we do. I just don't think they were either using the same language that we do because they've created a groundwork for us to build off of. And I don't think we should reject that gift by way of saying like we're softer or, we're wasting time talking about our emotions versus just like buckling down and doing the work. Like that's real. They did that and they didn't have the kind of time that we have to like make a podcast, but it was a different world and they built a really good safety net for us. And we shouldn't reject that gift just because it wasn't the same world they were working with. Anyway, tangent. I think success for me is living peacefully. I think beyond material safety and comforts, it's like living peacefully with a sense of calm and a really robust sense of wonder. I think that lens on the world is something that I really don't want to lose. That's really important to me.
Yeah.
And that I want to continue to fuel. Like, I don't want to become like a hard-hearted old man who's like weathered a bunch of storms and is like tougher for it on the other side. I want to meet challenges with strength, but also with just like curiosity and wonder. I think if I was looking at a future version of myself and they were a less curious person that was less excited about being in the world than I am today, that would be really sad to me. That would feel like defeat.
Yeah. When you think about what you're like when you're 60, I asked my wife this the other night. I said 70, and she said, "No, that's too old." I think we'll still feel pretty good at 70. So I'll just get 70. When you're 70, you're skipping along some marathons still. What do you think you'll be like as a person? How would someone define you? Like, what's the ideal there?
Interesting. I don't think I think about making it to 70 very often.
Or you could even compare it to like a literary character.
This is maybe silly, but I think the literary character...
It's not silly. I think it's wrong.
Okay.
This should be silly. It's a silly question.
I think the literary character that I was so drawn to as a child that was really fascinating to me that I would love to be, in some respects, likened to as an older person is Tom Bombadil. Do you know this character in
No idea.
Lord of the Rings? It's either in the Fellowship of the Ring or in The Hobbit. He might be in
Not The Hobbit.
Not The Hobbit. Okay. I think it's...
That's the only one of those books I've read.
I think it's in the Fellowship. You don't know this character?
No, not at all.
So I don't know the background of his origin story, but essentially he's some elf adjacent creature that lives on and off the land. He's married, I think, to like a wood nymph or a dryad, some sort of water spirit, I think.
All right, that's too far.
Okay, but here's the thing. He wasn't in the movies because he broke the structure of the films. And I totally understand why Peter Jackson didn't include him, because he kind of like broke rules, and it would have confused people more than like...
I mean, it sounds kind of like Elrond from The Hobbit.
Yeah, so Elrond is this very powerful, magical creature, but he has limitations in this world also, even though he's like godlike in some senses. But Tom Bombadil is like the only character that the ring doesn't affect. He puts the ring on and like laughs it off and like takes it off again and gives it back to them, and is like, his magic is like older than that magic.
Yeah.
Like his way in the world is above it, but he's living so simply. He's like living, you know, this beautiful agrarian life. He's like the Wendell Berry character in Lord of the Rings. Like he's farming and dancing and hosting, and no evil can affect him.
So that's what you're doing. You're farming and hosting, and no evil affects you. That's US
at 70. Yeah.
That's what is it about that though? That just feels right?
I think it's like it feels right. It feels like this beautiful, robust, lively way of being in the world and being with others. Like he's not achieving peace by disappearing from life in any way.
Yeah.
He's not achieving strength by accumulating strength. He's like just choosing not to play by those rules, and he's welcoming people to him, and he's very safe and generous. I think all those things are attributes that I would love to have at 70. I would love to create a space that people feel very safe in, that people leave strengthened, you know, in body or in spirit from, and truly like love the world that I'm in, but not be so caught up in it that I've taken on the burdens or weight of the world.
Yeah. That makes sense. I have a character I thought of.
Yeah.
I just realized my camera is shooting at 1/50th instead of 1/60th.
Oh.
Maybe. We'll see if that matters.
That'll probably be all right.
Yeah, it'll probably be all right.
I'm shooting at a strange angle that may or may not make sense in your edit.
May be useful or may not. This might be an audio-only version, or it might just be me that you can see on YouTube. I'm just kidding. So I first read Harry Potter in like 2019.
Mm-hmm.
I was traveling a bunch, and it was just like I would read it on my Kindle to help me fall asleep when I was in hotels or on the plane. And then I just got sucked into it. I've read it like 3 times now. I pretty much just read it to fall asleep every night. But the character of Dumbledore is as represented in the books, not in the movies. As represented in the books, is so calm and playful.
Yeah.
And has a wisdom that like respects the young and old.
Yeah.
He's not scared of like people younger than him having information he doesn't have. Mm-hmm. Doesn't like hold on to like his wisdom in that way. But mostly that he's so calm and so playful.
Yeah.
I want to be just like a playful old man.
Yeah.
Not like creepy playful, but you know.
No, I know exactly. Yeah, I totally know what you're talking about. That's ideal. I think that's a really beautiful way to be in the world.
Yeah.
It's also a really respectable way to hold power and wisdom. Like you have the most influence and the most power and the most knowledge that you're ever going to have in your life, probably at that age, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And what you do with that, I think reflects your, I don't know. I ran out of words.
That's okay. I like the question though. I like to think about what I want to be like at that age.
Mm-hmm.
Not just like what do I want to have or what I want other people to think of me.
Mm-hmm.
But like what am I just like as a person?
I like that.
And then how do I start to be more like that right now?
Mm-hmm.
Because if I don't start to be more like that now, I'm not just going to all of a sudden be like that.
Right.
And that's kind of everything we like set our minds on that we like want to do. If we don't just start doing it,
Yeah.
like we don't get to this like mysterious finish line if we don't like start doing it.
Yeah.
Like this impact I talk about, I want to have, like if I don't start creating content that shares with people my thoughts about how they can bet on themselves, like it doesn't have the impact, or it might in just a small scale, right? The people I come in contact with, the people I have relationships with, but I want it bigger than that.
Yeah.
Because I think it can impact way more people.
Totally.
So I started posting like stories on Instagram today.
Okay.
And I've done this probably like 5 times in my life. So it's still just like awkward for me, like clunky and awkward. I hardly know how to do it. And it's kind of funny like how strange it feels.
What were you posting before? Because I feel like I've
Nothing.
seen a couple of shorts. Or
I posted a couple reels last week.
yeah.
I have some kind of like caption stuff I've been working on.
Can you explain the
but
difference between reels and stories to me?
Yeah, the story is like has a 24-hour life.
Oh, okay.
And, you know, it's typically pretty less polished.
Yeah.
And it's more like the unscripted version.
Got it.
Instagram, I mean, and stories just get viewed way more than posts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can have all kinds of calls to action in them. Like, even if it's just like, I did a post about this shake I drink every day for lunch. And it's like, do you eat the same thing for lunch every day? Like, what do you eat? And I like already got like a bunch of messages about it.
Interesting.
So interesting.
And does that feel risky? Or
It feels so risky. It feels scary. Had a long call with my coach about it last night. Like, like it genuinely just feels like scary.
okay.
Like, I don't know what people will think of me doing this, and that feels scary.
Because it's a
The
different type of communication, or because you have less control over it because it's not polished or edited, or
No, I'm okay with it being unpolished because I do a lot of unscripted stuff on YouTube.
Yeah.
But it's just like I don't have the reps at this, so it just feels awkward.
yeah.
I feel like I don't know how to do it. I feel like it looks like I'm trying, and for some reason, I hate to look like I'm trying. Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Of course I'm freaking trying. I'm
Yeah.
trying everything. I'm trying really hard.
Totally. Yeah. There's some
But people probably would rather see that I'm trying hard than I'm just like not. Like, that's not relatable.
Yeah. I know this thought wasn't original to you, but I just remember it so often because it's something I think you've reminded me of so often, is this expectation of perfection or I don't know, functionality at something that we've done very little or not at all. But for whatever reason, we are holding ourselves to this standard or this expectation of excellence right out the gate. And then when we don't achieve that, feeling defeated, but that expectation is ridiculous. Like we wouldn't expect proficiency of a child at, riding a bike if they've never been on a bike before. But we do that to ourselves in so many ways, so often.
Yeah, we can talk about kids sometime too, because I think sometimes we have pretty high expectations of kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's ridiculous how high of expectations we place on ourselves.
Right.
For me, it's mostly based off what I think somebody else is going to think or say.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a voice I've heard before. It's that voice from the normal crowd that I've just heard the things they say about other people, and I'm like, oh, they're going to say that about me.
Sure.
And that's scary.
Yeah. It's
It
terrifying.
actually is, but it like literally does nothing to me.
In terms of changing your
In terms
actions?
of like impact. No, in terms of like actually like it like literally doesn't change me at all. Like I'm still me and I'm still like trying to do something.
Sure. Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah. I have like such specific people that I can like hear saying things, and it's from different seasons of life too.
Yeah. That's interesting. I wonder if I could name those voices for myself. I don't know. I don't know if it's that clear to me. Curious.
Yeah, I named one last night to my wife, and she was like, "But what would he actually think?" I'm like, he probably would think like, "Oh, good for Sam," and
yeah,
that's it.
Yeah,
like think nothing else.
Yeah,
and it had to do with making money, because I was asking her like, is wanting to make a lot of money a ridiculous goal? Like, am I like putting too much value on like wanting to make money? It's like ever since I was a little kid, I wanted to make a bunch of money. Like it's not like it feels very normal to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think it feels very normal to most people to want to like have that kind of freedom to move about the world and move about their lives.
Mm-hmm.
But working in, I mean, I worked in ministry for 10 years.
Yeah.
And so in that context, it's that ambition is kind of judged.
Sure.
But then also we've been talking about how even in the richest of the world, like that, there's this value that's placed on like being very conservative, like not spending, like those kind of things.
Totally. I just did you see that thing on Instagram that I sent you from?
Speaking of reels, yes, I saw that reel you sent
me.
Yes,
that's what it is. I sent you a reel from Money with Katie where she was talking about rich people cosplaying as poor. And it's the outgrowth, it's the acting out of this exact thing that you're talking about. It's people feeling the pressure who have achieved a certain degree of wealth. They feel the moral pressure, I think, from society to cosplay as poor so that the achievement that they have made is seen as like this gritty, foundational, principled thing, and not.
I don't think that those people are actually doing it. I think that there's these other people that are just interpreting someone's intentions. Like she gave the example of Graham Stephan, who just talks about how he saves 99% of his money. I've heard him on plenty of podcasts.
Yeah.
He's just a super conservative person.
Yeah.
He is.
Sure.
He like penny pinches everything. He's like checking their receipts on everything. That's just how he is as a person. He's not at all saying that that's what got him to where he is.
Sure. Okay.
You know
so
I mean?
that's other people's.
That's often the interpretation is like, oh, and that was that reel's point was like, people want to just say like, okay, then how do I build a $3 million YouTube channel? Okay, I save 99% of my money. No, that's not it.
Right. That's
just the most understandable part of his message.
Right.
Or of his business, of his lifestyle.
Yeah. What is that though, like morally, culturally, that we latch onto as narrative? Does that make it seem more attainable to us? Or
I think so. And I think the Warren Buffett example is a great one too, of like,
right.
He bought his house in 1964 for $31,000.
Yeah.
And he's worth however many billion, right?
Yeah.
It's like, but then so many people's takeaways is like, oh, so you just have to like buy your house and stay in it forever.
Yeah.
And then you'll be ahead. Like that has literally nothing to do with Warren Buffett's success, except for maybe he never thought about like a house. And so like he had room because he was in his brain because he wasn't thinking about that thing.
Right.
He wasn't thinking about this like comparison of like, oh, I need a bigger house or a nicer car. Like, no, he just removed that from his brain so that he could spend more of his mental energy focusing on making money.
Yeah, and it clearly wasn't a value to him to live in a more opulent life situation, to live in a bigger house or to have a different car. I mean, I think that's a healthy redirection of perspective. It's just saying like, that's not what got these people to where they're at. Like the extra leverage financially that Warren Buffett has because he wasn't spending money on a house is not what turned Berkshire into Berkshire.
Exactly. No, it was his like removal of other things in his life, his removal of like other thoughts or cares, probably did make Berkshire into what it is.
Yeah.
But then it was just his aggressive application of his mind to finding value in other businesses, learning all these models and applying them over time.
Yeah.
And then convincing people to give him billions of dollars to invest.
Yeah.
It's so much more complicated.
I think there are probably some people that are like acting like they're living in a different life circumstance than they're actually in financially. But I doubt that it's very often the rich playing poor. I think it's probably more often people in like a middle income that are living lavishly beyond their means as a presentation to society of success, of the success that they want so badly, like buying a flashy car that you can't really afford, or going on vacations on a credit card.
Yeah. People can just do what they want, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why we waste time making moral judgments about other people's lives. It's so
we really do, though.
It's so easy to do, and I do it a lot. It's pointless. Huh.
Do you actually do it, though, or is it just like a flash and you're like, you move on?
I don't like... I'm not spending a great deal of my time doing that.
Do you talk to...
I think it's muscle
would
memory.
Recognize if you like talk to other people about it, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
If you're like, oh, did you see so-and-so?
Yeah.
Bought a Lamborghini?
Uh-huh. Well, we've talked about this before. I think I just had some like moralistic distaste for flashy shows of wealth. Mm-hmm. 'Cause it feels, I think it feels false to me. Yeah. And you, I think rightly called me out on that. You're like, I can afford it. What's wrong with it? It's a cool car. It'd be really cool to drive that car. Good for him.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. You're right. I just want that car.
What's like a childhood dream you had?
I think every doodle I ever drew had a helicopter pad on the home that I constructed.
Yeah.
That meant like
that's
success, wealth, and freedom. I think the helicopter pad was not like, I think it was just like, oh yeah, I can live on a mountain and fly wherever I want. That's success. More than a pool.
Yeah.
More than like, I mean,
Well, you're like in Montana, so like having a pool is like, no, it's going to be too cold.
Yeah, that's insane. We swam.
Unless you have like an indoor pool in your basement or something.
It never crossed my mind as a possibility. Didn't even have a construct for that. I built tree houses that I sketched helicopter pads onto. It's ridiculous.
Wow, now I want you to have a helicopter.
So dangerous. I don't want a helicopter.
I mean, just don't get Kobe's pilot. I mean, he died though, right?
Yeah, he's off the market.
Yeah, so I would love for you to have that.
Now, I think that the same weight that I put on that is just like having a big kitchen.
Yeah.
That's full of people.
Yeah.
Same excitement.
I've heard Stephen Dubner from Freakonomics talk about this quote a few times that his mom used to say, and she would say, "Enough is a feast."
I love it. That was probably the thing that stuck
really
out to me the most from that. It was his interview with John Green, right? I think so.
I don't know.
It was. And I think that's a beautiful sentiment. I made dinner with some neighbors last night in the most cramped kitchen I've been in so long. Like the cutting board went over the sink. And it was incredible. I learned how to make pasta.
Nice. Charlie teach you?
No, it was Vanessa's neighbors. And he's a baker. He came from the coffee roasting world, but staged at a bakery and bakes now. under this Orthodox.
Stodged? What's that?
Stodged is, I don't know if it's just the culinary world or I don't know if it's the entirety of the culinary world. Yesterday was the first time I heard this term, so forgive me if I'm getting this wrong. But basically, I think it's a culinary internship. So whether you're working under a chef or under a master baker, it's like an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
And the bakery that he works at here in Colorado Springs has a stipend, like a fund essentially, where they send their bakers to go work under better bakers if they're interested in improving their skills. So
that's cool.
Yeah. So he had done that. And so we had beautiful bread, made pasta. I'd never made pasta before. It was gorgeous, really fun. All that to say, it happened in the tiniest space.
Yeah.
And it was just a really rich experience. Like we were experimenting with building some drinks while we had 6 different dishes going, and there was a cat running around all over the place. And it wasn't like a pristine kitchen, but it was kind of the experience I think that I'm looking for.
I think constraints help with stuff like that too.
Mm-hmm.
I think constraints actually simplify experiences.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the business model of like Trader Joe's and Aldi, even though I hate to shop at either of those stores, because they just have limited options.
Yeah.
It's like, this is the peanut butter we have. Costco's kind of similar.
Yeah.
It's like, no, these are the 2 things we have of tortillas. Like, which ones do you want?
Yeah.
Instead of like just the piles of tortillas you see at the regular grocery store.
Yep.
And I think that constraint, that like, it reduces like decision fatigue in general.
Yeah, it removes a ton of anxiety from the experience.
Yeah. It removes just like, you don't have to choose between 20, you choose between 2, and that's just a different experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
I noticed that with my daughter, who's almost 5. Like, if I can just reduce the amount of decisions she has to make, like, she's so much less likely to have a tantrum.
Yeah.
I think I want to like give her these opportunities to like choose what she wants, but I just like give too many options, or like make her decide something like once a minute for a little while, and then it just like snaps. She's like, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
She doesn't know that's what she's feeling.
So for yourself, in this unemployable framework, when the horizon line is yours to choose, how do you deal with that yourself? Because now your decisions are unlimited.
Yeah, that's great. So I've built this kind of world where I started my business because I wanted to do it on my own terms, right?
Yeah.
So I'm in real estate. I have a real estate license, and I have a YouTube channel that generates these leads that I make content for every week. These leads come in, I close some of them. I have some agents, partner agents, I close them, a lot of them as well. And in the midst of all that, I find myself just like kind of refusing to do the parts of the business I don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Where if it's like, respond to these emails, these people that want to buy in 2 years have a bunch of random questions, or it's like, respond to comments on YouTube. I spent some time today like in the comments. I haven't been in there in a long time. But there's all kinds of parts of the business that I don't enjoy doing.
Sure.
And a lot of those parts I've found other people to do. That's what you do when you're a business owner. You hire other people, you outsource. Like, you don't just do it all yourself. Other people are happy doing those things. Like doing showings and transactions is part of that. I mostly have a buyer's agent that does all that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I've built this kind of ecosystem where the tone is I only do the parts I want to do. But then sometimes I miss the things that are just necessary. Like, no, I need to post stories on Instagram so that more people know what I'm even doing.
Sure.
But I'm like, well, I have a little bit of resistance. Like, I don't actually want to do that right now. I want the outcome of it, but I don't want to actually do the step right now. So how do I like push past that so I can get the outcome that I want, that's like stuck in my brain? So some of it is finding the balance between like what you want to do and like what's necessary.
Yeah.
Because if it's necessary, it doesn't matter if there's any desire to do it. It's you either do it or you find somebody else to do it.
Totally. I think that decision, or I don't know, filter step of what's necessary is something that I need to come to more often and sooner, because it's really easy for me to build a productivity list that gives me a sense of purpose and forward momentum, but I haven't really truly assessed if these are all pointing at the same goal, or if they're all important enough to do, or if they're important for me to do, or if they can be pushed to somebody else to do. I think that assessment, you've honed that filter pretty well, but I think that thought process, that filtration would be really helpful at some point to give to people. Like how are...
Yeah, and the thing is, other people give that too. Other people talk about that kind of stuff a lot.
Yeah.
So it's out there. It's just that people, even me, like I've struggled to identify like the 1 year goal, the 3 year goal, the 5 year goal, and then like realize what the necessary steps are, because they're not the same all the time. They change and things grow and things evolve. And like, for example, I started referring a lot of my deals to these other agents that are on a team that I work with. And I got feedback last night of like, I can't work with this agent because of all these reasons. And it was like, oh, I need to be more involved in this. Oh, maybe I need another buyer's agent. Like the path that I thought was the path forward might not be. I might need to take a step back and then go on a different path.
Sure.
And sometimes that is just part of it.
Yeah. That's interesting.
And part of that decision is how people are treated when they interact with me and my brand is more important to me than making money.
Yeah.
Because defining that experience forever makes money. It does.
Yeah.
And I don't really know what I'm building.
But you know,
But I want everybody that comes into contact with me, they have an expectation. I define the expectation and it happens.
Yeah. That's interesting. So you don't necessarily know what you're building, but you know how you want people to experience you. You know how you want people to feel.
Yeah. It's like Zappos. Which, talking about Zappos now is strange because of the founder's mysterious death.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
So strange.
Well, how is it like Zappos, though, other than...
Their mission was delivering happiness. Like, we are a customer service company that happens to sell shoes. Like, that's their message.
Yeah.
Like, all we care about was the customer happy? Not, did we make the money? Do we have the right inventory? Like, whatever it is.
Yep.
And just defining that as the culture, like, really set them apart.
Yeah. Interesting.
So I'm often asking, clients or leads, as I usually come in, why they called me. Usually they're telling me. Usually it doesn't take, I don't have to ask the question. They tell me exactly why they called me, why they connected with my story or something. And then I'm just focusing on that. Like, okay, that's the thing that's the most important to you, is that you thought I wasn't pushy, or you realized I have a family, or whatever it is. And how do I connect that, and then connect that piece to the agent that works with them too? With not just like taking notes, but like actually like set up a timeline that supports the reason they're there in the first place.
Yeah. Is that down to the point where, like in your CRM, you're making a note for whoever that handoff goes to? Like, this is the narrative for this client?
I make a lot of notes like that. Usually that's like a phone call whenever I'm, calling my agent, or he'll call me and say, hey, give me a little more insight on this person. Yeah. And it's hard to find those kind of people, but the agent I have right now, like he met me through my YouTube channel. So yeah, he understands that connection to me and my brand. And so he helps bridge that gap so easily with people.
That's great.
Yeah.
And so the place where you're needing or realizing you're going to have to like step in to maintain that experience isn't with this guy, it's with some other agent.
Yeah,
group.
it's with other agents. If I do start to expand, or if I even hire another buyer's agent, just defining how people have to be treated.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of it. It's like just how people are treated. And to me, it's not that complex, but to others, it is, or they just never thought of it that way, or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, totally. Have you ever sat down and sketched out like mission or vision, values for yourself, treating this all as like a personal brand? Like if you're representing me and representing the brand, this is kind of the ethos of it.
I have for Living in Tampa, which is the YouTube channel. I've written a lot of that, and even documented like client journey, stuff, those kind of things.
Yeah.
But I think that would be good for just me as a brand as well.
Yeah, I think so.
Which also just feels silly saying me as a brand.
Sure. It's a strange, vulnerable space, but I think that's the reality of it, is all of this is originating from you. So I think just treating it that way will help you apply structure. Yeah. I think it's okay to own. It feels...
I think it's okay to like own how ridiculous it seems too.
Yeah. But I mean, it's the reality of the space that we're working in and living in.
Yeah. Whenever I started my YouTube channel, it felt like everything I was saying was like really simple or like half baked or like somebody else's ideas. I was just regurgitating somebody else's ideas.
Yeah.
And it just felt, I had a lot of imposter syndrome, a lot of awkwardness on camera because of that. But now I'm like 200 videos in, and it feels like so normal and natural.
Yeah.
And I even see the comments. Like people engage with my comments that way too. Like somebody was like, did you know somebody took your name of your channel and they're making videos too? And they use all caps in their thumbnails. And I was like, and somebody else commented like, did they really? That's not right. I'm like, I commented back. I'm like, it's fine guys. Like, don't worry. Like, thanks for watching, but it's fine.
Yeah.
So it all felt like really simple and uneducated, but now it feels like complex and thorough and thoughtful.
Yeah.
And natural.
Do you feel like you have more or less ideas than when you started this journey?
Oh gosh. Probably more by like 1,000 times.
Really?
Yeah.
Was that ever a fear that you're like, I don't have enough material, I don't have enough knowledge or information?
Absolutely. And I hit so many walls when you're like consistently creating content. It's like, no, the schedule is like you publish on these days.
Yeah.
And even if it's like that morning, you're shooting the video and you're editing it that afternoon, like you get it out. And if I believe in like, this is going to work, I'm just going to keep doing it for now.
Yep.
So I really believed in it and knew that I wanted to keep doing it. And yeah, that was hard at first. A lot of it was I didn't have my own ideas really. I didn't feel like they were my own yet.
Sure.
And I didn't have an audience. So I have like almost 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, and like now they ask for videos. Hey, can you explain this law? Or what about a house in this area for this cost? Or now people, I tell stories in videos. Posted a video last week about one of my clients. His name was Matt. Actual story about an actual client. And somebody emailed and said, hey, that story about Matt, I want to do something like he did. It's like, oh, great.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So now they just happen, and I focus so heavily on storytelling. And in the beginning, I was like pulling from life stories.
Yeah.
I was telling stories about my experience of moving here or my family, or even bringing in other experiences from life or jobs or things like that. Now I'm telling stories about clients.
Yeah.
Over and over again. So-and-so called, and this is why we went this direction. Like, that's kind of my whole vision of it now.
Right. Yeah. So that story feed is pretty limitless now.
Yeah. I feel like that's actually a part that like differentiates me from my competition. Because it's not just competition in my market. My competition is all over the US.
Yeah.
Because now I'm helping other people build YouTube channels. And I might get a cut of some of their deals, or they might pay me or whatever it is. But, my approach is now having to be unique among the rest of the competition.
Yeah.
So I started another YouTube channel in my same market, but with a different person. It's for this team, and I get like a cut of their deals, so they come through this channel.
Yeah.
We've shot probably 10 videos, and my editor's doing all of it, and I'm paying the editor. Like I'm very invested in it, and I published the third video. It'll go out today, and they've already got leads from it. They got their first lead over the weekend.
Amazing.
They've already got comments.
Yeah.
A couple thousand views.
Wild. And are you the face of this, or?
No, not at all. I'm giving titles. I'm writing some of the videos.
Yep.
But then I'm there helping him shoot those videos and saying like, oh, remember that story? Tell that story here. Or maybe explain this a little more like this. So I'm more just like coaching how the content is presented.
Yeah.
And he's just getting leads already.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
If
awesome.
If that was somebody, well, based on where his channel and content are starting out, how far along in your process have you jumped him to? Like, how much time did you just save him in that growth
Probably
process?
4 months.
It's huge.
In terms of how the content is presented.
Yeah.
Probably a year in terms of thumbnails.
Okay.
Probably a year in terms of titles. Like all those kind of things. Like I jumped him so far
Yeah.
in all those other areas too.
It's worth a lot.
Yeah. I think I undervalued it.
Yeah. So when you do this next, or if you do it again, if it's worth your time in your estimation, what will you change about that framework that you hand to somebody?
I think I would define a little more clearly like, okay, this is my involvement for the first 10 videos.
Yep.
Then this is my involvement for the next 10. And like you as the actor in the content, you need to have this kind of ownership, and you need to meet these kind of benchmarks for me to keep going.
Got it.
I think, just setting them up to do it on their own takes a while.
Yeah.
Because at first, there's so many obstacles. It's not just like, oh, I have to look at a camera and talk to it in public.
Right.
But it's like, I have to set the tripod up. I have to make sure the mic's connected. Like there's all those dynamics.
Totally. There's a lot of hard,
really challenging.
Yeah. A lot of hard technical skills and a lot of soft skills that need to be just practiced that are learned quickly, but then, polished by repetition, I'm sure.
But if I were to start another one, if I were to start from scratch, like I've got no gear, I would just do it on my phone forever.
Really?
And I would just hold my phone in my hand. Like people are completely okay with that.
Uh-huh.
They don't expect it to be like high quality. They're looking to an answer for their question, and that's where they're finding my videos.
Right.
If I'm providing the answer, then they're happy.
Yeah. Totally.
I definitely like overdo it in terms of quality. Some of that's for me though. Some of that is to like help me enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
And to help me feel proud of it, like you were saying earlier. Like I feel like proud of the output.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was looking at one of the shorts, or it wasn't a story, it was a reel. Yeah, I was looking at one of the reels that you did on Instagram the other day. I was like, the composition of this shot is great. Like just the background element, lighting, and the way that you lit yourself. I was like, this is awesome. But I think
it helped that I shot it at 50 millimeters too.
Yeah.
So you just get a very different perspective than like I'm recording this at 16 millimeters. It's very different, even like facial perspective.
Sure. Yeah.
People don't realize those kind of things.
Just looked at my own camera to make sure I was still recording. But that kind of stuff can be for you, can be for your crafting satisfaction.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, one guy I was kind of giving some advice to, he's in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and he has a video background. He's done a lot for the travel department or whatever of Tennessee.
Yeah.
And I was like, Evan, like if you're setting up a C stand, like you're going overboard. Like,
Yeah.
and he was like, I still am going to be me. Like, I can't not do that. It's like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a lot of time.
Yeah. I don't even own a C stand.
Yeah.
Most of my stands, like I have tabletop tripods or stuff like clamps to desks or stuff like that. Like,
Right.
it's just so different.
It is.
So yeah, there's definitely some things I would do differently for the next time. I've got another agent that I'm kind of coaching. He's in another Florida market. And I need to just kind of set some benchmarks for him of like, even like, hey, here's your assignment, like do a pros and cons video about Miami.
Yep.
But I need you to do all of it in an hour. Like write the content and shoot it within an hour. Because I need to see like how your brain works so that I can help you get to this next level.
That's really interesting.
I think that's something that is a shortcut with this one I've been really hands-on with, is that I could, give him the notes on my phone and like mount it up by the camera, and he's just like going through point by point. And he didn't have time to like prep or overthink.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, yeah, go ahead, just say it like this. And he's like, how do I say it? And I'll just kind of give him an example, and then he'll just say it his own way. Like that kind of hands-on, like accelerated it so fast.
Yeah. That makes sense. You're artificially reintroducing scarcity into that creative environment.
But then what if I just have a whole bunch of channels in this one market? They're all like, my hands are in all of them and nobody even knows.
Nobody would know because they would still be unique enough in the voice and ownership of that speaker.
So yeah, I think doing more of those is a way to scale. And those are pretty big financial opportunities. Like if I were to take a 20% commission on the first 20 deals, like that could easily be like a $50,000 wave. And that could happen in a year if the agent's already good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
Because you would remove yourself at some point, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Do you retain a smaller equity stake in perpetuity? Or?
Absolutely. Yeah. I would never want to go like below 15%
Okay.
of leads from that source. And I continue to provide value for that.
Yeah.
No, there'd probably be at least a full year where I'm providing titles.
Yeah. Okay.
And maybe I'm managing the editing.
And then that would eventually move into what, more like a consultancy relationship?
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know.
It would probably...
I kind of have this one I'm testing to see like what would feel natural to be the next step.
Totally. I mean, maybe the vision of it being totally passive isn't realistic or necessary. If you're managing an editor or a suite of editors, that's fairly straightforward.
Right. And then I hire a manager eventually to like do those kind of things.
Right. You could continue to provide that agency, that sort of value structure. I think that would make a lot of sense. Huh.
Yeah, and once people start making money on it, it's worth a lot more to them too.
Yeah.
At first, they're like, I've never talked to a camera. I don't know how to do it, and I don't know if it'll work, and like, it's not very valuable to them at first.
Yeah. Is there anything that you learned having to edit your own content that they're missing out on by just shuffling raw stuff to your editor?
No, some of it is just like the natural tics of using notes when you're talking to a camera.
Yeah.
Of like, did you look away too fast? Like, so like knowing how to edit helps those kind of things because you recognize that like, oh, I was still talking when I started looking down at my notes.
Yeah.
Some of those things are definitely parts of it, but it's easy for me to kind of make a list of those things. And it's like, be careful not to do these 10 things.
Sure. Yep.
And I've started to create some content like that on my personal YouTube channel where this podcast is hosted. And even just like tactical stuff of like how I build a framework to talk about areas of town. Or I could do that. Like make sure if you're not editing your own content, like this will make it easier for your editor. Like those kind of things are things that I could really add value on. Part of me doesn't want to add value. I want to have like higher level conversations, just like in the work scenario. I don't want to talk about that kind of stuff, but it's like what I know right now.
Yeah.
It's kind of where I need to start. It's kind of where I need to add value now.
Yeah.
To kind of grow past that too.
Yeah, and there's going to be a certain group of people that's the perfect information that they need right now. Like you're just far enough ahead of them that this is like really practical and really applicable. And then when you're speaking to higher level things, it's going to be a different audience, or maybe this audience that you brought with you, that those core principles or bigger ideas are going to speak to.
One thing that's interesting, my coach and I were talking about this last night. Like you see someone like really influential, like even like take someone like Ray Dalio.
Okay.
Who has written this amazing book about all of these things he learned while he was working. I mean, I think of him as like a modern, or not modern, an ancient content creator. Like he was capturing this content of his life and his thoughts before that was like a thing. But one thing that we'll have is proof.
Say more about that.
Can you like go see that I actually started a channel and like succeeded? And like, yeah, you can like go see my channel, my consumer channel, my personal channel, my Instagram. You can go hear me on these other people's podcasts. You can hear me on my own podcast. It's like, there's this history to support these claims.
Yeah. There's
instead of just like ambiguous like news articles.
Right. Ambiguous cultural impact versus like analytics about impact.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Well, and also just evidence of like, I've been where you are. Like you hear Tony Robbins like relate to someone suffering. It's like, I don't know. That doesn't connect, right?
Yeah. Like how long has it been since you you actually felt this?
Since you flew commercial.
Yeah. And suffering is relative. Like there are principles that you can meet each other at, but there is something that's so, I don't know, so attractive about the person that isn't simplifying the circumstance that you're in, is acknowledging the raw difficulty of it, but is giving you practical steps and tools and hope. Like there is another side to this and it looks like this. And I just came through it and I'm still hurting a little bit. Here's a couple places to avoid, but here's what you should expect also. It's going to be this.
Yeah, difficult. Even to say like, you're not that far behind. Like just keep going.
Yeah.
There's some people that have really helped me with that, to see like, I'm not that far behind them. Like a couple steps, 6 months, like whatever it is.
Yeah.
For someone ahead of you to say like, no, you got it. Like you just got to keep doing that for another couple months and then you'll be there.
Yeah.
That's been like so powerful when people have done that for me.
Yeah, that is really, really encouraging. So what else are you building? What's next? It seems like you have a pretty good idea of that real estate channel
I need to
space.
Update my personal website to include this podcast.
Yep.
So last week I went from 2 pieces of video content a week to 7.
Wow. Okay.
This week I'll jump that up more.
Okay.
So, and those reels, like maybe that's too polished. You know, it probably feels a little bit fake to people, or like too set up. You know.
Maybe. Felt good to me, but I need to look.
But you already like me.
Yeah, sure, and I like production value. I'm a real sucker for production value.
You are.
But I'll look at your stories too, just so I can get a taste of what more raw content looks like.
The biggest pivot in my business now is that the content is the business.
Right.
And I think that's kind of the modern business, right?
Uh-huh.
I mean, even like Nike, like, the product is part of the business, but the product is sold through the content and the brand.
Yeah.
Without that stream of content, like the product doesn't sell that way. The lore isn't created.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to build a company like Nike. That's not really interesting to me. But the content is just, I'm just in this realization, and it's taken me a few months of saying this over and over again to myself, that the content is now the business.
Yeah.
Not that I'm just going to like create a course and like have a year of experience in business and then like sell courses. Like I'm not that interested in that. I'm not against building a course though, if I think it could actually add value.
Yeah. I wonder if you're going to create, I don't know, like create more attention than you can funnel to a product. Like,
I hope so.
what other products are you starting to consider other products, I guess, because you,
No, not really.
okay.
Attention is kind of the product.
Yeah.
Inspiration is the product,
Yeah.
which just feels like crazy to even try to do.
Or to
It
say
does.
inspiration is the product.
Yeah.
What you're building along the way, though, is a great deal of trust. And I think some of that could easily be applied to like I still want you to do a review channel
Yeah.
because I know how.
I mean, if somebody else like found the products and wrote the stuff for me, I could shoot the video.
Yeah. Because
We'll talk about that other business maybe on our next episode.
okay, great. But for so many reasons, I still want you to build that kind of channel because you're still the person that I reach out to when I need a brief, honest assessment of a tool for anything, for like travel backpacks or camera gear or I don't know, books. It's still just like you're the voice that I want to hear from. And so I think it'd be interesting to consider something in that space.
It's interesting though, like that brings up something interesting to me about my consumer channel, my Tampa channel.
Uh-huh. Like
that's what I am.
Yeah.
I'm just curating honest opinions about the area.
Right.
That's really interesting. That's just kind of part of me.
I think a big part of that value, though, is that you're looking beyond the request that people are making. Someone's saying, I want this thing, and you're often saying, why? And is this the right thing to satisfy like that upstream desire or goal? And so when I come to you and I say, what do you think between these two cameras? And you're saying, why do you need a camera for this? That's the helpful part of it is like somebody asking that bigger question that's helping you broaden your view of your challenge or problem.
Yeah, that upstream thing is something I talk about a lot. Like, how do we just go a little bit further upstream to find some motivation?
Yeah. Like,
somebody's often calling me. There'll be a season of the year, and it's about to happen, where these developers start marketing to the Northeast. Like all these big developers down here building master plan communities that are like 6,000 acres, giant communities.
Yeah.
And they start marketing heavily to New York and New Jersey. And I start getting calls one after the next asking about very specific communities from very specific zip codes.
Huh.
And it's super interesting. Often, like, I'm realizing, that's how you came in, but like there's so many things that might solve what you're looking for.
Yeah.
It's not often, it's 10% of them that actually land there, where they thought they would. Others, it's like, that puzzle piece fits in all over. Like, let me show you all this other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so helpful, though, to have somebody that can see that that's happening, that can see that you're starting here in your narrative of solving your problem. And then somebody says, maybe that's not the best question to ask. Or maybe that's not the core of desire that's happening here. Like, and you have to understand people well enough to know that that's what's happening. That's a huge soft skill. That's a really big value that you're offering. And it's really applicable in a lot of different spaces. So I don't know. I just want you to start other stuff.
Yeah, one thing I've been gradually reviewing is like greens, like a morning greens drink.
Okay. Like AG1, stuff like that?
Yeah, I tried that for a while. I'm on my like third different one.
Okay.
So I tried AG1 for a while. Then Jocko came out with one.
Okay.
Jocko has like a supplement company, and his was like half the price.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much the same ingredients. And then now I'm trying Huel has a similar product, but that has a lot more like vitamins in it than the others do. So I don't know. I like Jocko's the best. It tastes the best.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't know if I believe in vitamins.
I had a moment yesterday where I was like, I don't think I believe in probiotic supplements anymore. I think I need to get this from raw foods. I think I need to get it from fermented foods, but not a pill.
Yeah.
I think it's actually breaking my microbiome. It's just like normalizing it, not
I don't
building
think
it.
anyone cares to hear about your microbiome.
Oh man, I'm going to start a podcast dedicated to my specific gut
If you
health.
tracked that, people would probably listen like in detail.
If I did like a series about what a nuclear hellscape my microbiome was after being on like way too many.
Yeah, your journey from like
Antibiotics?
being over medicated with antibiotics.
Yeah.
Well, not over. It's like you were sick, so you needed them.
Yeah, but kind of
and then
sloppily
repairing.
medicated. Yeah.
But that repair,
Sure.
that gut repair after antibiotics, people would love that.
Okay.
See, these are the kind of ideas I have. I'm like, that's the content. Like people are actually searching for that. I promise you.
Yeah, I guess I believe that. I would love to have found that kind of resource.
You would have watched it.
Gosh, I would have watched anybody's content about medical billing.
Yeah, uninteresting.
Oh, terrifying. Frustrating.
Yeah. I was talking to a client last night. He's a day trader. He worked in finance for a while, and he was talking about the effects of inflation.
Okay.
We could talk about this another time too.
Sure.
But he was just saying like people don't realize the way inflation actually happens. Like people think it's like the prices just go up. No, like with food. So first it's prices go up a little, then it's quantities go down,
Yeah.
then it's lesser ingredients are used, lesser quality ingredients are used. Like it happens at a very micro level.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I've never
to, like,
thought about that.
So that consumers don't actually know. Like the ingredients just change and stuff.
I think what we notice, I'm saying we as like all consumers,
Yeah. You're speaking on behalf of
on
everyone.
behalf of everyone. I think what we notice first is when there's less, when quantities are lessened in a snack. When there are fewer chips in the bag, I think that's the first and
Yeah.
sometimes the only
People
indicator.
freak out about all that air in a chip bag.
Yeah. Or like counting Pringles in a can, or like the ounces of this soda are like slightly. Those are the only parts of
Interesting.
inflation.
Yeah.
That part of inflation that you're talking about. Nobody.
I've noticed it with coffee. It's like coffee. You used to buy a pound of coffee from like a nice coffee shop, and then the price of that went up, and then the quantity of it went down, and the price went up,
Yep.
and then the quantity went down again. So now it's 10 ounces
Right.
at a very similar price as that 16 ounces was a couple of years ago.
Yeah. I just bought, as a budgeting effort, I guess, this 2.5 pound bag of coffee from Costco. It was the only medium roast that they had. I was like, I can live with a medium roast. I'm always drinking like way too nice of light roasts, right? And I opened this bag and maybe half of it is medium roast and the other half is just like dark as the night. Like, oh, interesting.
You should take it back. Costco will take it.
Yeah, I'm probably just going to drink
Just
it.
tell them like this isn't medium enough for me. They would take it back. I bought a vacuum at Costco the other day, and it's just clearly been used.
Oh,
It like smells like somebody else's dirt already. Like I can't do this. This has got to go back.
that's funny.
Yeah. Well, we can wrap it up. Thank you for joining for the first Unemployable episode. I'm going to publish this tomorrow.
Okay.
I don't even have a logo yet, but I'm just going to push it out.
All right. Yikes.
How do you feel about that?
I feel
Nobody's going to listen to it.
great. I feel good about that.
Colin and Samir talk about the deep end, like welcome to the deep end.
Yeah.
Like once they're in the second half of their podcast. And they're like, if you've never been to the deep end, welcome. I feel like I always get to the deep end. I guess other people drop off.
Yeah. I love the deep end. It feels weird being in it, like leading people into it, but I don't know. I trust you. This will be fun.
Yeah, this is long. This is like hour and a half, even edited, I bet.
Yeah.
All right, so next time on Unemployable, we are going to talk about a company that we're building, a solar referral company. Very similar to my real estate referral company, but just kind of, similar kind of lead attraction method, but different execution kind of overall. But once again, the content is the business. We'll see that, and we'll kind of take you along the ride with us. The big ride, the solar referral company.
Exciting. Oh, man.
So
Cool.
Come back next time. We'll see you all later.